All right, if the rowdies down there at the end of the table come to order, please. We'll go ahead and call to order the regular meeting of the Steering Legislative and Governmental Committee for Monday, May 3rd, 2010. First item on the agenda will be the approval of minutes from our April meeting. I'll call on our Vice Chair, Adam Cotton.
Motion to approve the minutes as mailed out.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. We'll move on now to our next item of business is announce 2 vacancies on the Linebaugh Library Board. Marilyn Castelli and Melissa Beatty have terms that are expiring there. And next item on the agenda is to fill 3 vacancies on the Emergency Communications Board. We have received a couple letters as well as applications from the 3 individuals who have terms expiring. Chief Glenn Chrisman, Mr. John Hood, and Sheriff Truman Jones. They currently serve on the 911 board, and they all 3 have reapplied. These are the only 3 applications we've received. That's about it.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve those 3 people to be reappointed.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. It'll be that recommendation will be confirmed, I guess, subject to confirmation by the county commission at the next full meeting. Okay. Next item on the agenda: the appointment of judicial commissioners. I don't think I have. We do have a letter from the Smyrna Municipal Court, Judge Keita Barnes. The undersigned judge of the Smyrna General Sessions Court of Rutherford County, Tennessee, hereby respectfully recommend that, pursuant to the authorities contained in Tennessee Public Acts of 1978, Chapter 933, the following re-elected as judicial commissioners for the town of Smyrna for terms not to exceed 4 years, and such terms to conclude and terminate if and when the term is concluded or the service with the town of Smyrna is terminated. And Judge Barnes has recommended Sergio Gutierrez and Susan Keith as judicial commissioners. I'll pass that letter on down the line there for consideration.
These 2 appointments are just for City of Smyrna, correct?
I believe they are.
Mr. Chairman, I move for their approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We will then move on to our next item of business, resolution to approve House Bill 2509, Senate Bill 2607, relative to county registers. And Jennifer, I think this is something you would like to address to the steering committee. So if you would come on forward. And in my 8 years, I don't think I've had the pleasure of having you up here before.
I haven't been here.
Good.
My 12 years.
We're glad to have you. What's going on?
This is a resolution that I would like the county commission to approve. It allows the revenue collected from the data processing fees to be utilized for other purposes directly related to the official function of the registrar's office. 1998, the EDP fee was passed that every document that was recorded in our office, you pay additional $2 EDP fee, and that money has been used to pay for computers in our office, computer maintenance, computer services, strictly computers in our office. This will allow my office to be able to use the money for special needs outside of the computers. And we have a project that we want to do next year that will backscan documents back to 1804, all our deeds, and we would like to use that money if this gets approved.
How much does it usually generate right now?
Yearly, we generate around 100 to 140,000. We also turn around and spend. Last year we spent 58,000 on computers. This year I budgeted 142, but that included the 80,000 for the back scanning.
So normally the access would come.
We have around 600,000 in that reserve.
And that'd be kind of like an ending fund balance for your office. Is that kind of what it boils down to?
I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
it's a lot of flexibility in this law. It gives her the ability, with county commission approval, to use those funds that are in excess of those that she has to use for computer hardware and software
Right.
for other operating purposes. It gives her a pretty good bit of flexibility, but she just can't use it without bringing the proposal
Right.
forward.
Right.
So it'll still be kept in the separate fund,
Definitely.
but designated, and then each time you want to make an expenditure out of that fund, then it would just come through the realms of, I guess, public safety, and then budget, and then full commission, like it normally would for any type of budgetary issue, or would it just be a straight out, you could spend that money how you wanted to?
From my understanding, once I get approval this first time, I don't have to keep going back for approval.
Well, I think we probably have to answer. I think she'll have to go back to budget probably on an annual basis to get this money, and then take it to the commission for final approval.
Okay.
We do have to approve this resolution to allow her to have that
Right.
flexibility. Let me see that, please.
So I understand we need to allow the approval, and I'm well in tune with that, but as far as the budgetary process, this would be a one-time yearly
Well, it could be yearly.
expenditure
She could-
maybe, or designated funds out of this right here to spend on whatever you wanted to throughout the year. You wouldn't have to keep coming back month after month, is what I'm saying,
Well-
to do whatever, or you do.
It says this. First of all, approving this resolution adopts, and about 2/3 majority gives her the authority to do this. But it also says prior to any purchase relative to the official function of the register from revenue collected above an amount necessary for purchasing, upgrading, supplying, and maintaining computer equipment and software, the register shall obtain the approval of the county legislative body. So it sort of reads to me, and we haven't discussed this really, that every year or every 6 months, whenever she needed to make a budget amendment or put into her annual budget, she can do that subject to commission approval.
Okay.
She may have a line item in her budget now that says X, Y, Z amount of money. And if she goes over that amount of money, she's going to have to make a budget amendment to come before the county commission, be budgeted to the full commission, to ask for more money than she's already may have budgeted. Is that the way it?
Oh, that's correct. And/or during the normal course of budgeting for a coming fiscal year, if she chooses to need $80,000, which is more than her normal computer equipment and software,
This is her
she
money.
puts this $80,000 into the budget request, and it goes through that way.
Yeah.
Either way.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if there's not any more questions, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution to send it to the full county commission.
I'll second. One bit of discussion. Where did this come from? Did this come from us or?
Hamilton County initiated it.
Okay.
And then I believe it was amended.
It was amended. 4 other counties piggybacked on after they found about
And we're one of
this
those?
flexibility that
Yes.
was coming. We want to be in on the flexibility.
I agree.
And that's what happened.
So this has already been passed by the legislature, but it
Yes.
needs to be
Mhm.
adopted by the
Right.
commission
Yeah.
on a 2/3 vote for us to opt in.
Correct.
All right, any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
No.
They'll go on to the full commission then for approval on May 13th.
May 13th, okay. Okay, thank you.
You may want to be there in case
I
any
will.
questions come up.
I definitely will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good to see you. All right. moving on now to any other business. I know we do have some any other business. I think the mayor has some any other business. So call on him first.
Oh, there may be some other. Oh, okay. Oh. Let me take just a minute to explain. Those of you that are not on the Public Safety Committee haven't heard these discussions that we've had regarding a plan that we've had developed regarding communications infrastructure for the county and for a county fire rescue department to be set up. Those are two ambitious plans, but two very, very important plans, we think. In any event, it's going to take a good bit of capital to get this started, about $3.7 million of capital expenditures for the communications piece and a little under $2 million for the county fire rescue department. You're going to be hearing a lot more about that. It's already been to public safety, and public safety has endorsed the concept, you might say. And we've had presentations on both of these approaches. And in addition to that, it's in the budget. And this hasn't had full disclosure in the budget yet, to be honest with you, but it's going to go there, and they're going to have an opportunity to review all of this. And what we're doing, there are grants available, and there are other requests that we have to make that we're trying to do a way to put together several pieces of this puzzle to get these capital dollars obtained. One of which is an assistance to firefighters grant, and then there is Homeland Security. We've already got some money there for most of one tower. Then our own development tax. Then we're talking to the 911 board, and we've had 2 or 3 discussions with them already. And then we're going to be talking to one of our local foundations. All of that together, if we could get all of them to agree to what we're proposing, we would have $3.7 million. But included in that is $900,000 in the form of 2 grants that we're preparing now for this assistance to firefighters. That would allow us to get the $900,000, which would be comprised of 2 pieces: $500,000 for part of our $2 million communications infrastructure plan, and then $400,000 for 2 fire/rescue trucks. That would be the beginning of our new vehicle that would give us a combined capacity to do both fire and rescue on these responses that we're making on basically vehicle problems and extrications, etc. All right, I've told you all of that to say that to get these firefighter grants, we probably can't do it without having a county fire department, county fire/rescue department. So what I am asking you to do is to approve a resolution that would set up this department so that we can make the application to the granting body that we have a county fire department. Without this county fire department, we probably can't even apply for these grants. And of course, if you don't approve this through the budgeting process, we don't have anything anyway. But technically, we need to be able to say, and the deadline on this grant business is like May the 28th or something, okay? So we have one more commission meeting. So I'm asking the commission to approve the mechanics of authorizing the development of this Rutherford County Fire/Rescue Department. And of course, it'll be subject, as all things are subject to funding. If it's not funded, we won't have the department. That's what this is about. I know that may be confusing. And Becky, if you want to pass around, this is a simple little resolution that we've that the consultant who works for CTAS has sort of provided us this model, and we've made a few changes in the county attorney, and we have reviewed this, and this is a simple approach.
Mayor, the Section 3 talks about how we're going to fund a new department like this.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one is from revenues generated by situs-based taxes collected in unincorporated areas of the county. What does that mean?
That means if you have a countywide fire department, you can use only monies that you've collected from outside the municipalities, and or you can use money that's already been shared with the municipalities. But we can't use money that's being generated from within the city of Murfreesboro, Smyrna, or Laverne, or Eagleville to fund this. It has to come from outside sources. We do have enough outside sources of revenue that this is not an issue with us, and I don't know how we change this. Revenue shall be allocated to the Rutherford County Fire and Rescue Department through the regular budgetary and appropriation process. We've got more than enough sales tax revenue and hall income tax revenue and some other revenues that Lisa has identified that clearly would be more than enough dollars to fully fund this, what we're talking about, this initial part of this fire rescue department. That's the way the state law is crafted. In other words, we can't use money unless it's situs based, which means from the site that you're serving is from whence the source of revenue came.
So where would they be housed?
Mayor
What-
Burgess, with these other departments, like, say, for instance, Last Cases, Kittrell, Walter Hill, would they suffer as far as Rutherford individually filing for these grants? Would it hurt them if they duplicated that, that, going for a certain grant? Would it hurt them on their chances
Well,
of
that-
getting?
They would still have the opportunity to compete for the grant. I mean, they wouldn't be asking for the same thing that we're asking for. I'm told that there's lots of money in this AFG grant, and they would be able to compete for the normal things they've even competed for previously through that grant. So we wouldn't be superseding them, I don't believe.
Now, basically, Commissioner, it would actually enhance the other volunteer fire departments throughout the county, because what it would do, the Rutherford Fire Rescue Department could actually file for grants that can help and be given to the Last Cases, the other individuals. Those fire departments would not lose their identity. They will still have their same identity in fundraising ability as far as fish fries and ham breakfasts and things like that. But this will help. What happens is the federal government looks at these grants through how many different agencies it will touch. And with this being the way it is on grant process, in the application, the need could be shown that it's actually going to be helping 11 different departments. But see, the county can't file for this unless we got our own fire department. I mean, now they have to go out here and individually apply for this. The county can do this and distribute things out to those.
What you're saying is after Rutherford volunteer, if it's incorporated into the county, these other departments can get money.
Can benefit through this mechanism.
And back to Mr. Phillips' question, the initial base of this operation would be the consolidation of the Rutherford Volunteer Fire Department, the Rutherford Rescue Squad, and the Salem Blackman Fire Department. All the other volunteer fire departments stay independent and stay as they are. So you'd have this little nucleus fire department, and it would provide, one of the primary things it would provide would be it would respond to all structure fires. It wouldn't respond to all the other calls. And this would, what else was I going to tell you about? There was it would be located at a piece of property that Rutherford Volunteer Fire Department has already acquired, and a building would be constructed there, and part of the monies we're talking about would be for a new building that would house this consolidated group of 3 entities, which would comprise our first Rutherford County Fire Rescue Department with only 1 employee, a chief. In other words, we'd be swapping a coordinator for a chief, and then that would be, and it's going to cost the county about $20,000 plus operating dollars more than we're currently spending.
So all that's included in the dollars.
That's in the dollars.
The construction.
And all those dollars I talked about capital-wise are capital one-time expenditures, but the ongoing reoccurring costs are going to increase about $20,000 or more dollars. But that's sort of the overlying approach to how we want to do this. It has many, many advantages, both safety-wise, response-wise, communication-wise. In other words, we don't have but about 82 or 3% coverage radio handheld coverage in this county as a whole. So we're putting up 5 towers. We've already got 2 towers. But putting up towers, sharing towers, and putting the proper equipment on that, we're going to increase that to more than 95% coverage. And the consolidation in the beginning with this fire department will have many advantages for continuity and consistency within this whole process.
Some benefits that, and it's coming through the public safety that night, we heard it, some of the benefits are going to be like on the communication part, like the mayor said, there's about 83% of the coverage that the deputies, the firefighters, the EMTs cannot get out.
Or they can get out, but there's about 17 to 20% that can't get out.
They can't get out in certain areas. There's some dead spots throughout the whole county. The rescue plan, where Rutherford Rescue, right now, they're over on West College Street and on the Nashville Highway. And if they respond out to the Las Casas, the Kittrell area, Walter Hill area, they're looking at over a 20-minute response time, where there's going to be quadrants of rescue trucks all over the county. Will cut it basically in half and getting out there to where, like in your district, Jack. And the let's see. Oh, and like the mayor said, the fire side of it, a lot of these departments, like especially during the day, doesn't have someone maybe at the station. Some do, some don't. This fire department would be responding to all structure fires, and ultimately it has the benefit possibility of helping lower everybody's ISO rating, insurance rating for their insurance companies to a lower than what it is now. So those are some benefits that this could actually have and save some money and some lives for some people in this county.
Concept sounds real good.
It does, man. It's such a difficult economic time when we're expanding, into a new governmental agency. People are going to question: is now the time to do it? I saw preliminary projections. Don't anticipate any kind of property tax increase this year. The state's looking at furloughs and layoffs. I don't know how we're going to manage to balance our budget, in particular when we're opening 2 new middle schools. Have to find a way to operate those. I guess the question is, am I understanding right that the net result of creating this department for the 2010-2011 budget year is $20,000 in addition to capital costs, which I missed at some point? Can you review the capital costs of creating this budget for this department?
Costs if we do all of this. Now, all of this may or may not happen in one fiscal year. It may take us a bit more, so some of that may spread across too. But if we were able to do it in one fiscal year, it's about $3.7 million of capital cost.
And that is for the infrastructure for the communications.
For the communication.
That's about $2
million.
Okay.
And then it's for a structure to house the county rescue fire department.
Okay. Will we need that immediately?
Well, over the course of the next year, yes.
That's planned.
And we're planning on
2010 budget.
The merging of those 3 entities. We're going to take over some of their debt on 2 of those, and then one of those we'll take the debt over, and then we'll sell the property. So we'll get a net back on that. But it's the 3.7 will be less some number of whatever that property is valued at. So between the Rutherford Rescue and the Salem Blackman Fire Department, there's some debt that we're going to consolidate. That's part of the capital cost.
So for 2010-11 budget, then what do we need to allocate in the capital cost?
With $3.7 million, that's what the whole thing.
But it'll be allocated.
But it's across 4 components. We're not funding all of that. If we don't get substantial partnership arrangements worked out with an E911 board, with the local foundation, and with this grant money, we won't be able to move nearly as quickly as that. It may take us 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I don't know.
If we can get all what we need from the other agencies, what is Rutherford County share?
Little over $1 million out of our development tax. It's $918,000.
All of this, we could pass this contingent upon the funding available as presented.
Right.
Okay.
you looking forward in 2011-12, is the budget expected to blossom from $20,000 in operating costs a year to something more than that in beginning 2011-12 and continue on?
It may grow, but we're not talking step function. It's going to have to be a very incremental process, and we may not do much of anything the first 1 or 2 or 3 years until we sort of get a base established here. Until we establish the base, we continue to contract. We continue to give over to these same volunteer fire departments the same dollars we've been giving them. This agency, just instead of a charitable contribution, it's a contractual arrangements that we hand over the money. So that hasn't changed.
Mr. Sutton?
I got a few questions. I think it's kind of been rippling, with some, I guess, through some volunteer fire departments, which have really been very well needed in the years past. If it wasn't for our volunteer fire departments, I mean, this county would really been in a mess a number of years. And they have worked hard and raised a lot of money each and every year to continue to fight fires and provide us a service out in the rural counties, which was just a few of them left. But still, in rural Rutherford County, I mean, that's what we depend on. And we very much need their services. I noticed in the budget meeting, not being on budget committee, that there's $20,000 in changing from a coordinator to a chief. And that's the reason for that is because, I guess, starting this department. What is the $20,000 for?
Well, that's the difference in what the coordinator and what we're incurring in those costs now, plus what we would incur. We're going to take over the responsibilities for the utilities and et cetera of this new building and or the one of the other buildings there. So we're going to consolidate some of those expenses and maintenance, et cetera, into this little entity, and that's a total of the $20-something thousand we're talking about. That's in excess of the current expenditures.
Okay, but that person can't be a coordinator anymore because of what we're doing here. He's still going to be coordinating, I guess, but it's going to be
to have a fire department, you have to, by state law, designate a county a fire chief.
Okay.
And that's required, or we can't have a fire department.
Okay. And you hit on it, I think, Commissioner, a little bit, or we've kind of been around that a little bit. The individual fire departments throughout the county, then this does not cross over on them in any way, form, or fashion. We're starting our county fire department, but say Las Casas or Blackman or whoever, it doesn't affect them in any way what we're doing here, or does it?
It doesn't. They're still their own volunteer organization, their own nonprofit organization. They still have the same abilities to raise money, the same abilities to apply for grants. We, instead of handing them a check for charitable contribution each year, we'll hand them a check each year, and we'll call it contract services. They'll contract those services with us, and they'll receive the same dollars.
So their funding mechanism for their hard work in collecting funds, it's not going to go this way into another county fund to be then distributed equally or done differently or whatever. It's still designated dollars for designated fire department or whatever.
Yeah, they still control that themselves.
It also tells them as far as the contracts, now they've got a signed agreement that they have to meet certain guidelines to be able to get that money. Now, like background checks and different things like that, they're doing that now.
Has the local fire, I've heard from one or two, but has all the fire chiefs in agreement with this as far as trying to do this, or really we're not asking for their permission? This is what we're doing, or is this?
Well, but some of both. We've had multiple discussions with them. We've been at the fire chiefs meeting. I won't say that it's 100% that they're every single one behind this, but I think in the majority, by far, they agree that this concept puts us in a position to build something that'll help improve our delivery of service immensely over a period of time with both volunteers and training and resources.
Y'all have touched on it, but I don't know if I'm convinced, and I don't know if a couple of the chiefs are convinced with this funding mechanism, not the funding mechanism, but I guess the grant that's being applied for, will it affect them and their grants that they get, because they rely upon that a tremendous amount as well?
Allenville,
But it may be totally different grants.
I mean,
is what
they
I'm
may be
saying.
asking for something completely
Right.
different
Yeah,
from what
and
we're
I don't
asking
know
for.
that for a fact, so I'm just asking.
Allenville can apply for those same grants.
Mhm.
So they're a 501(c). They can apply for it. Rutherford Volunteer Fire, or Rutherford Fire and Rescue can apply for them same grants. But what Rutherford can do is show a need where they're actually touching 11 different departments, where Allenville can only show a need where they're touching one department. What can happen is the Rutherford Volunteer Fire and Rescue can turn around and help get grants for the Allenville or whoever else out there. When those grants go up to Washington, there's a committee that sits up there and grades these. If they can sit here and see something that's going to touch 11 different departments versus they got one right here that's touching one department,
Wow.
that need is going to be met through the 11.
Yeah.
They still can do the same thing they've been doing. This here will give them a greater way of actually being able to apply for these grants. The Rutherford County can actually apply for them and actually distribute out to different departments certain things on that grant and those needs.
And these two fire departments that were, Amiable Salem, I guess Blackman Salem.
Salem Blackman and Rutherford Volunteer Fire and
We're-
Rutherford Rescue. They're the
We're
three.
pretty much buying them out
We're buying them out. All
And-
three of those entities.
and then starting one.
That's our base of beginning.
Okay. And these 2 or 3 vehicles then will be housed in that one facility.
Well, yes. We'll have, we're going to, over the course of 3 years, we're going to, hopefully, if we can get the money, get 6 of these, 2 each year, 2 for 3 years. And we're going to redistribute those. We're going to distribute them in Amarillo, Kittrell, later probably Walter Hill. So we sort of have some strategic locations that will strategically place these out there into some areas that will be a lot closer to where they need to respond from.
Yeah, Kittrell's gonna get one, Allenville is getting.
That's the first 2.
That's the first 2.
Yeah.
And then that will help out as far as the rescue purposes of the response time I was talking about a while ago. And then Walter Hill is projected to get one. And then there was one more, and I can't think of where it's at.
So if we approve this here, then it's coming through budget.
It's coming through budget.
I
Budget going.
got some more questions.
They got a lot of
I'll
questions
just-
that'll have to come at budget,
Yeah,
but but we can't really make this application for this first $900,000 off of those 2 pieces, both communications and the fire rescue. So it's 2 pieces here, the communications piece and the fire rescue piece.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve if we ain't already got it. Do we have it yet? And to send it to budget. I've got some questions in budget, but I don't think it's for the steering committee at this
I'll
point.
second it. I'll second.
I'd like to add to that contingent upon funding.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mayor, I've got one question. As part of the funding for the operating expenses, are there any grants that are presently going to fund some or all of the 2010, 2011 budget that will disappear after 2011?
Well, the only grant money we're asking for is capital money. We're not asking for any operating money.
Okay.
So there's no money in it. The operating budget is less than $200,000 a year. So none of this 3.7 I talked about is operating. It's all one-time capital expenditures.
The $20,000 increase then, so it's increasing from
From whatever it is now, from 160 to 180 or whatever. I don't remember the precise number, but that's the kind of increase we're talking about.
and the operating funds that are being used right now that you're talking about, the 160, what do they go to operate?
Well, all we've got really now primarily is the coordinator, and I haven't got the other cost associated with that, but it's not much.
In that budget that they presented that night, the committee did, it was like the $30,000 from each one of the departments that they're getting now is in that operating budget.
Yeah.
That we
That
just funded.
that was
Yeah.
given out to Lascassas and Christiana and Amarillo.
Right.
So, yeah, he's
That's
right.
part of
So,
Well,
so 3 of those 30,000s come into this so that we can pay for the utilities and et cetera. And so that's 90 plus the coordinators is where we're getting the cost.
The Smyrna Rescue, Salem Blackman, and Rutherford Volunteer Fire Department, their 90,000, like you said, is coming back into the
Stays into here.
budget, into this budget.
We don't give them the same money anymore. We use that money for,
Okay.
quote, operating that little consolidated entity.
Did I understand you correctly, that instead of each individual volunteer fire department requesting a grant, we would coordinate that and distribute those monies?
We could.
We
We
could.
could do it that way.
This time, we're not doing, this time it's simply for some capital costs to start the initial base of this. They still have an opportunity this year, even next year, and
Right.
afterwards to do their own requests as well. But what Mr. Farley is saying is, if at some point we could all agree that they need a certain type of equipment or the same kinds of things, we could have a much greater probability of getting that by making the grant application through the Rutherford County Fire and Rescue and then distributing what we receive to them, appropriately.
Was the fire chiefs at y'all's meeting, public safety meeting? Or have we had a meeting with?
They've been at their meeting and we've been at their meeting and discussed all this in detail.
Mayor Burgess and I went to the Fire Chiefs Association meeting that was out at Walker Hill, and then the fire chiefs come up to the Public Safety Committee meeting. We had a special call public safety meeting, and where Kevin Lyer with CTAS come up and presented this plan to the committee.
I'm sorry I wasn't at that. I'm not on public safety, and I should have been at that meeting. I like to feel the temperature of the fire chiefs, and
Well,
any change, whether good or bad, always has good or bad reactions. And I'm just saying, I don't want to mess with their fundraising. I don't want to mess with their money that they get by grants or whatever, because they're working very hard out there to maintain insurance and fuel and everything else that goes along with it, and keeping up a volunteer department, and it just it's something I'm treading lightly on it. We need them very, very much so.
Yeah, and we can't do this without them. And this right here will not hurt them through the fundraising, through grant process, through anything. And they've all been told that at the meeting.
Okay. We can move to the next step and try to get a little closer.
All right, further discussion? Y'all ready to vote? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Mayor. Appreciate you bringing that forward.
Okay. Well, I'll ask you, have we distributed a copy of these reports to you already? I mean, the communication study plus the other one. I didn't know whether we gave that out to all of the commissioners or not.
I don't think that.
I thought maybe we put them in all the boxes, but we need to do that. And we will give you a copy of both of these documents if we haven't already done so.
Thank you. Okay, any other business?
Yes.
Commissioner Black?
Last commission meeting, we had a conditional use permit come up in my area out on 231. It was pretty heatedly debated. Since then, I got quite a few calls from constituents out that way about 231. I was contacted by DNJ, Sam Stocker. He lives out there. His concerns was about the widening of 231. Like you said a while ago, I know the state is very, in trouble as far as funding and all, but he had talked to Senator Jim Tracy. He had talked to Murfreesboro Dana Richardson, traffic patrol. They said they had no knowledge of it, and the county had never sent nothing over to them, saying we was in need of maybe sending a resolution, to the proper authorities, I guess, as far as getting it widened. Well, since that last meeting, I think when that, if it's all right with this committee, I'd like to send a resolution to the city of Murfreesboro, and also to our state legislators about 231 being widened. If there's any way possible, getting some kind of feedback from them when it could be, since it's in, it's got a lot of mixed residential and commercial area out there, and it's main artery coming out of Murfreesboro to Lebanon, and they had already widened some parts of it. I just would be interested in sending a resolution to both parties, I guess, if it's okay with this board, this committee.
Commissioner Jordan?
Where's the city limit?
Right now, it is at Walter Hill Bridge, right before that. Right
Okay, so
before.
the school is outside the city at the present time still.
Right.
But it's a double lane to the VA.
Right
That's-
there, and then Cherry Lane, I think it goes back, right before you get to Cherry Lane, it goes back to 2 lane. And then it widens again as, right there before you, about maybe a quarter of a mile before you get to Walter Hill Bridge. Widens again right there.
So not much of this road is in the city, but still, they'd have to understand, if it's 5 feet, we've got to notify them or ask them, I understand that, but there's not much of it city, most of it is county. I don't see anything wrong with the resolution, asking.
It's all state road though, right?
It's a completely a state road,
Yeah.
yes.
Right.
So the city wouldn't have anything to do with it, would they? I mean, as far as funding or even authorization?
Well, whatever part is within the city, if the city would choose to cost share, it would make a difference. If the county would choose to cost share on its piece, it would make a difference with the state. And when you may or may not get your money, it might speed up the allocation of money.
It also asks the city to at least join us in the resolution.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll second your request if you're making that informed
I'm
motion.
making an informal motion.
I'll second your request.
What exactly do you want it to say, though? Do you want to request, send a request to the city of Murfreesboro and state legislators requesting widening of 231? Or are you just going to ask the city to join in the request to the state legislators, or what?
Well, it strengthen our request to the state if we could get the city to join in.
That needs to be,
Does it need to be 2? So I guess send one to the city of Murfreesboro.
okay, so,
Well, let me interrupt here just a moment, if you don't mind. It doesn't quite work that way. Here's what you probably need to do. You need to get the county and the city to jointly agree to send to the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is the group that does all the planning for roads in this about 8 or 9 or 10 county area. Now, you can send it to your state legislatures concurrent with that, but it has to start there. It's got to be part of their long-range road plan, and you got to get it started. I mean, this is a long, tedious process. So, if we could figure out a way to say that, develop a joint resolution between the city and between the county, and that we request the widening of Highway 231. How far are we going to take it? All the way to Lebanon, or just in our county?
Well, I know where the urban growth boundary stops.
Yeah.
Right now, it stops at the cutoff road, and it, like.
Well, we just, I guess, request that it be widened or expanded, an engineering study done, and widen it all the way to the Rutherford County, Wilson County line. I mean, at least and hopefully they would carry on, but that would be probably the best we could get out of them. A copy of all that to both the Metropolitan Planning Organization, our state representatives and senators and TDOT.
so should we start with the request to the city?
Well, if we're going to get a joint resolution, we'd have to start with them, and if we're going to do it together.
And send it to the Metropolitan Board. Is that what?
Planning Organization, yes.
All right.
Since it's coming from here, I mean, I don't want to jump committees by any
Do we need
means,
to-
but should it go through Public Works?
That's what my next suggestion would be.
I mean,
I'd be more than glad to go to Public Works tomorrow if we could, some way or another. They meet
It
tomorrow
is
night,
tomorrow, I think that, but
And I could,
if it goes to Public Works, I'm not even sure you have to go to steering Public Works and take it straight on, can they not?
Yeah, yeah.
That's probably where it belongs.
Yeah.
In my mind, it is. I'm not really sure that we weren't kind of overstepping our
I was
boundaries
gonna say,
a
I'll
little bit.
withdraw my second if you wanna take it to Public Works
Right.
tomorrow. I believe it'd be the right round, not to overlook
right.
any committee by any means, but, I think it probably needs to go through. You might want to call the chairman, let them know that you're coming and have it, bring it up under any other business.
That'd be fine.
And be
I'll
able to.
withdraw my motion and I'll carry it to Public Works tomorrow night.
Yeah.
I'll get in
Is that all
touch.
right?
I'll get in touch with the chairman and tell him what I want
It'd be
to
good to
propose.
invite someone from the city to that Public Works meeting.
We could, it's Dana, I mean, I think if we, Dana Richardson is the
Right.
primary person over there, and he is on one of the primary committees of the MPO, he's on the technical coordinating committee, so this is a process that, you know, happens every year, but you have to sort of just get in and line up with them, and this will probably be something they'll put out there for 2020 to 2035, who knows when, but you have to start somewhere.
Gotta get the ball rolling
I
somewhere.
think we gotta get it rolling.
There you go. There you go.
Would it be prudent to ask Mr. Richardson to attend that meeting tomorrow night?
It's
Would
a
it-
little bit short notice, but I guess if there's any way we can make contact with him, if he would be, he might not be there and might,
You might want to give him a
I
call.
want to give him a call.
right.
Yeah.
Anyway, that would be, get the county mayor to get in touch with him and maybe if he could, or I could try to get over to him myself.
Okay, we'll see, I mean, I won't be here until the afternoon, but I'll try to call him from where I am in the morning.
I apologize to the committee, but I just had a lot of concerns about 231 since that last conditional use permit. I just felt like it was something I need to address.
I'm personally with you 100% on that, Jack. I think you got good support. If it's any consolation, certainly good support from this committee here. All right, any other business?
Last month, it was brought up to us about the text and cell phone thing, and I didn't see it on the agenda this time, but did you do anything about that or check in on that, see what we're supposed to do about that or bring it up? I hate to even bring it up, but that, you know, we were
Well,
going to bring it up, you know, as far
It was
as-
brought up and the mayor was supposed to investigate that,
Oh, okay.
along with everything
Well,
else.
sorry about that.
My limited investigations has determined that I don't think there's anything in the world we can do about controlling that. I think it's an individual choice, as long as it doesn't interrupt and disrupt the normal proceedings. It's just like you getting up and going outside the room or whatever. I believe you have the flexibility and freedom to do that. So I personally, and I've not been able to find that there's any other precedent for the ability to limit that. If you watch any of these shenanigans going on in Washington, D.C., it is a zoo, and they're doing everything in the world, including that and much more. So I don't think there's any parliamentary process that would be able to discourage or prohibit that. That's my personal opinion, what little investigation I've done.
I've changed my mind since the last meeting as to being able to control that, but I think we can ask for ringtones to be
Yeah, that.
silenced,
Oh, yeah.
so you can turn your phone off or put it on vibrate.
Right.
And I think we can do that, make that announcement.
I've gotten 2 calls sitting here tonight.
I have too.
I don't know. I don't even know who they were. I just let them go to voicemail. You know, I pushed a little thing here so it quit buzzing. But I mean, I've got mine on vibrate all the time. But
I really
I just
do.
let it go to vibrate. You
I
know,
really do
let it go to
think
voicemail.
that when one of those things go off, it is
Oh, yeah.
disruptive.
Yeah.
But there's also some merit to somebody trying to get in touch with you in an emergency situation or and also in just for communicating something that's going on, maybe some point that you might not know. And I changed my mind since the last meeting. It's probably something that we need to kind of get on board with, I guess.
Okay.
Any other business?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, we are adjourned.